You know, we see the big rallies, we hear all the promises, we stay up late watching the results come in, but the most important moment in any election, it happens in that one small room most of us don't really think twice about, the polling booth. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain. Just think about it for a second. Your own experience. You walk in, show your ID, you press a button, and you walk out. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But what's really going on in between those steps? Are you absolutely sure you know the process and, more importantly, why every single part of it matters?
You know, for most of us, that polling booth is basically a black box. It's this almost magical place where our individual choice gets turned into a collective decision. But the actual mechanics of it, they're often a total mystery. And that's a problem, because when a process isn't well understood, well, that's when manipulation can happen without anyone even noticing.
Okay, so to really get what's at stake here, we've got to look at the gap between how things are supposed to be and how they sometimes are. You have the official rules, and then you have what can actually happen on the ground on election day. So look at this. On paper, it's perfect. The theory is that everything is run by the book, with strict, impartial rules that are there to guarantee a totally free and fair vote for every single person. But the reality? Yeah, that can be a lot messier. And we're not necessarily talking about some big, dramatic fraud. It's usually subtle stuff, like a group of people just hanging out a little too close to the entrance, or small procedural rules that just get ignored. And that gap between theory and reality, it's usually propped up by a few key problems. First, and this is a big one, voters just don't know their rights, so they can't stand up for them. Second, the official observers for the candidates, they're called polling agents, they might be brand new, or worse, they might be discouraged from actually speaking up. And third, even if someone does complain, it usually just stops right there. It never goes any further than the person in charge of that one booth. Each one of these things weakens the whole system. All right, so let's make this personal. Let's talk about your journey. Because to protect this whole process, you first have to understand what's supposed to happen to you as a voter and what rights you have at every single step. So, I'm going to ask you again, straight up, could you name every single official step from the moment you walk into the booth? Look, it's not a quiz, but it is really, really important. Knowing the correct procedure is your #1 line of defense. So here it is, the official 4-step security check. First, they verify your identity against the official voter list. Second, your finger gets marked with that indelible ink so you can't vote again. Third, you sign the register. And only then, after all that, do you actually go and cast your vote on the EVM. That specific order, that's what guarantees your vote is secure. Now here is the scenario you need to know about. What if you get to that third step, signing the register, and you see someone has already signed next to your name? Someone's already voted as you. Do you just turn around and go home? No way. Absolutely not. You have the right to challenge this. You can cast what's called a tendered vote. It gets recorded separately, and in a tight race, it could be absolutely crucial. It's a right that almost nobody knows they have.
Okay, so if things do go sideways, who's supposed to be there to catch it? Well, the system has its own built-in observers. Let's call them the booth's unseen guardians, and they're there to keep things fair.
And these are the polling agents. Now, these folks aren't election officials. They are the official eyes and ears for each candidate, right there inside the booth. Their entire job is to watch everything, make sure all those rules we just talked about are being followed, and to officially challenge anything that looks wrong right then and there. And right here, this is a major weak spot in the system. I mean, what happens if these agents get intimidated or just pushed out? Or what if in your booth there are only agents from one dominant party? The moment that happens, that whole system of checks and balances just kind of falls apart, and the process gets a whole lot less transparent. The other key guardian is the presiding officer. This person is the final authority. They are the referee inside the polling station. The buck stops with them. Their job is to uphold every single rule and to settle any dispute, including any challenges that are made by the polling agents. But here's a tough question, and I want you to think about your own experience. Have you ever actually seen a presiding officer take really firm, decisive action? Or is the impulse more often to just kind of manage the situation? Keep things quiet and just get through the day? Because when that happens, little violations can get swept under the rug, all in the name of just keeping the peace. So, we've talked about the problems. But listen, this isn't about getting discouraged. It's about getting empowered. Because the most important guardian in that polling booth is you. Let's talk about your role as a watchdog. It really comes down to this. This whole democratic machine has a lot of moving parts, but it just doesn't run right without you. By being informed, by being observant, you become a critical piece of the machinery, making sure it all works the way it's supposed to.
And this starts before you even walk out the door. First, do a little bit of homework. Look up a simple guide on voter rights. You can find them on the Election Commission's website or from other organizations. And second, don't keep that information to yourself. Share it. Talk to your family, your friends, your neighbors. An informed community is a protected community.
And then, on the big day, don't just be a voter. Be an observer. Keep your eyes open. Notice if there are groups of people just lingering outside, watching people come and go. Inside, pay attention. Are some voters getting a little too much help casting their vote? And if you get a chance, maybe discreetly ask the polling agents how their day is going, especially the ones from smaller parties. Their answers might tell you a lot about how things are really running.
This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? That darkness inside the black box isn't just a passive thing, it's the perfect environment for things to go wrong. The single best defense, the brightest light we can possibly shine in there, is a voter who is watching and who actually understands what they are seeing.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. The officials have a role, the agents have a role, but at the end of the day, democracy at this level is a team sport. The system is designed with all these checks and balances, but they don't work if no one is actually checking. So the final question is a simple one. If the voter doesn't watch, who will?